Melissa, I'm so pleased to have you here on Rappahannock Radio or here virtually with me.
Yeah, we're a little distance apart, two mamas. Yeah.
Yeah, two mamas, um, womb keepers,
Womb keeper.
as you call them,
Hmm.
right? Tell me a little bit about yourself as a womb keeper. And it's Melissa Nyad,
Dad.
right?
Yes.
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 Okay, so who are you as a womb keeper? What does that mean to you?
It means to me first that there are, humans with wombs that identify as many things. Um, I identified a long time as a mother. I have 6 children, and I was really wrapped up in that persona of mother. It was how I created my safety and prosperity. It was my way to create like a social safety in a certain way. It was a persona and a role that I was really good at. I homeschooled my 6 children for 18 years and was a wife for 23 years. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a great accomplishment on so many levels. Like
Yeah.
6 human beings that, you have guided forth
Yeah. Yeah.
or still guiding, right?
Yes, although most of them are grown up and sometimes they'll come to me for guidance, but they're pretty wise in their own right most of the time. Um, so about through the past 4 and 5 years, I've been going through this big transformation, this midlife. People could call it a crisis. It felt that way. I call it individuation and
I
expansion.
like that.
Um, Remembering my wholeness, and this idea of the womb keeper comes from a lot of what I've seen in meditation, in my dream work, um, of the power of the womb and how it isn't just to create babies, that it's really something miraculous in its ability to bring about physical reality. And my process of growing into this role as more than mother or mother of bigger things than people.
Children takes on more than just your bloodline meaning.
More than humans and as
Okay.
individuals, maybe more like projects, or I
Yeah.
have a really big vision. And, that's not something I want to talk about at length with everyone yet, but as it
Yeah.
cooks and gestates, I keep it secret and safe. But, but this idea that we have labored under, that we are victims, or that we are oppressed. I believe that all we have to do to step into our power is to stop giving our power to that idea. And
And how does that relate to the idea of the power of a mother?
so that the ability to create, I believe, comes from our belief system. So what we believe we do create every minute of every day through our womb, through the technology of our womb. And that stepping into that, it's a huge responsibility. It's
Yeah.
something that requires a massive amount of inner work and
And constant focus, right?
constant focus, mostly inwardly. When you
Yeah.
have a baby, it's about consistently nourishing yourself, right? And then the
Mhm.
baby grows. And I think that creating our reality is very similar to that. It's really about devotion to our authentic wholeness, and not some role that's put upon us, not some expectation, not some obligation, not domestication. It's a wild and deep truth and authenticity that I think the one thing that women have not done is step into that power much. And because it's hard, quite frankly, it's hard. It's hard to break those belief systems, and it's hard to do the self work. Shadow work is challenging.
Why do you think that it's, I mean, other than it just being hard, but I mean, I'm in that, right, in the early years of that right now. As you know, I mean, when you first met me, I was pregnant with my second daughter,
Mm-hmm.
my second child, my first daughter. And so she's now 6 months old.
Mm.
It's an incredible time. And especially now, this time around, where I'm building sort of, I guess, my own empire, so to speak, and not, really leaning into that womb power and creating and moving from that center force outward.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I was going through my own crisis, as you could say. I think probably having really stepped into my adulthood, pregnant with my first child, my father had just passed. I was like in this whirlwind, and I was also working for something that I didn't believe in. And it was just like a job just to have coming in. And I went back to work at 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get the same level of connectivity that I would have wanted and that I would want for most women. That's not necessarily a possibility for a lot of women, right?
But
as I have with my daughter now. Sorry, what was you?
It is something you desired, and that was natural. Yeah.
Yes, it was something that I desired. And so the idea that like it is so hard to then like, so I saw a quotation, something along the lines of staying home with my children is harder on my sanity, but working as a working mother is harder on my heart. And it strikes straight to the core, because now that I have stayed home, now I'm staying home with my kids and doing Rappahannock Radio and my singer-songwriter journey. But it's like you said, it's like I have to constantly make sure, what do I need to be okay? So my cup is full, so then I can nourish them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, it's something my husband and I talk about. And it's like, there's so much chaos with that, but it's like it being one with that chaos instead of being like overwhelmed with, okay, the sounds of the toys, the sounds of the playing, or where's everything at, or is everybody fed, or, trying to ride the waves and making sure, I guess I wanted to talk about that notion with you a little bit. The idea of like how women they like transmute that chaos. I feel like if you can get one with your womb in that, it's almost like birth itself, right?
No, it is.
That chaos is so overwhelming, and the labor's coming, and the contractions are here, and you're like, but if you can go, it's just a wave. It's coming and it's going. Like,
so much about my journey has been of really what you're talking about is this birth process, and it's as a metaphor for like birthing yourself almost, I feel like.
Yes.
And each of these, I always thought of giving birth and becoming a mother as a spiritual initiation. And I feel like, how old are you now? I feel like you just hit your Saturn return.
So I think I was going through it when I was pregnant with my first child, and my dad had just died, and I was going through divorce, and just crazy, like everything was like, I'm here, and now I am 33. I'm going to be 34 in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So I'm in my Saturn like opposition. So I understand, like there are definitely, there's initiations that we go through. I know men have to go through initiations too, but I'm not party to those, so
right.
I speak to womb keepers, and you're right. The chaos is the feminine. That is, and I think there's a misunderstanding in
the word chaos even, right? People think chaos like cluttered, like unclean, or like it's not together, or there's something wrong and inherently. Do you know what I mean?
And if it's not something that brings you pleasure, then you change it, but
right.
The idea that chaos can assist you in creating great change. It can help you make big shifts really quickly. It can help you break boundaries. It can help create paradigm shifts. It is infinite possibility as much as it is infinite destruction. And that is what is inside the womb. Like it's the womb where we create, but it's also the tomb where we deconstruct. And that is the privilege of being in feminine energy, is that you you find harmony and you dance in the chaos and you use the chaos. And that's not something that I think that's not something that is well understood in our American culture, Western culture. It's very like tangible output oriented, productivity oriented, optimum output oriented. And, you know, I find myself being more nourished and more comfortable and happier and more able to give to the people around me when I am honoring my body's rhythm, which mirrors nature. You know, there are times of blooming and there are times of harvest and there are times of rest and death. And it's really hard to do that in a corporate setting when you're working for someone else
Yeah. Yeah.
and their dreams and their vision.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. And even just, I mean, honoring that, those seasons, those cyclical natures for your children. I mean,
Yeah.
when you have to, I know when I was a working mom, when you have to be at some place at a certain time and your kid's like not getting in the car and they're like, oh, look at this lovely, you know, rock over here in the driveway in the gravel. And you're like, come on, let's go. It's like you stamp, you crush those moments of creativity, not because you're trying to, but because you're on somebody else's timeline. And it's like with kids, there's not that solid timeline, not a standard, you know, it has its own like river pathway, like ebbing.
And there's a harmony between structure and chaos, I think, that benefits children most. And, you know, I think that dancing between the polarities is what creates something healthy and wholesome. It creates life.
Yes.
So, you know, sometimes we'll move one direction into chaos, sometimes into structure, and it's more about creating harmony in that. But you're right. I mean, I remember when my children were young, starting to get ready for an outing. It took me at least 30 minutes to get everybody in shoes and into the car. And, you know, if somebody wanted me to do something last minute, it didn't happen. I'm like, if you didn't submit that for approval 5 days ago, it's not on the agenda today. You know, I mean, I had 6 children, so I totally get it. Like, and the panic I would feel sometimes trying to get somewhere on time and feeling almost frantic that I might let someone down or be late, you know? I was very much pushing myself back then into being on this sort of, I'm going to call it yang path of getting stuff done and getting as much possible and performance. And, it was very performative kind of motherhood when I was very young, you know?
Absolutely.
And, I had a funeral actually to that kind of motherhood. I died to that kind of motherhood about 3 years ago. Actually, a friend of ours helped me with that. Gina is a shaman.
You just gave me goosebumps saying that because I want one.
Yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony, and we could absolutely do that. But
well, that's a good transition to talk a little bit about womb keepers in relation to. Let me make sure I get it. Lavinian Oracle.
Sure. So why don't I talk a little bit about what I do first?
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
I'm an oracle. I come from a line of oracles.
Right.
And I'm descended from the witches hung in Salem and at our joint here, American history, right? And I repressed my abilities for a long, long time, and I have. They were associated with my mother wounds and the witch. All these ideas, you know, that we resist our. I would even say being called into our potential. We actually choose for ourselves boundaries and like obstacles to overcome before we enter into these things, because it is the obstacles and the trials that help us step into our power. It's what gives us deep roots and resilience and strength to withstand storms. These trials and the difficulties are actually what create the woman we become in our 50s and our 60s. And so I honor those times. I honor those lessons, but they were difficult. And in the past 5 years, I went through a really radical spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I was not seeking it, but it sought me. And that created massive change. I've met soulmates, which created massive change. I became a Reiki master. I apprenticed with a multidimensional seer in a mystery school, and all things that I would have judged myself for when I was younger. I just this last year, I've been doing shadow work for years, but I went to I'm a certified Jungian life coach now, which is a really rigorous 9-month training with a PhD and experienced coaches with a lot of practicums and one-on-one coaching for ourselves so that we could move through the individuation process ourselves, and also peer-to-peer coaching. I mean, it was just a massive amount of work and training and really meaty work. And I made massive breakthroughs. I made huge transformations that I had been working on for 4 years, but it was just like, that was just the thing I needed to just really rip through and just like bloom and blossom and be brave. I think there's this aspect of individuation people don't realize. You come out of this feeling of being completely in an egg almost. And as you like break through these self limitations, you find so much joy out of life. You're much less attached to outcome. You're less attached to this idea. It's like the survival instincts that really hold us back. So you come to this place where you stop fearing your death, and it creates this massive amount of freedom to create in your life and do whatever your soul desires, which normally turns out to be exactly the thing that benefits everybody around you. So, so it's like opposite. I'm doing what is best for me and what my soul needs to do. And in return, it frees everyone around me to be free too. And, so yeah, that was my process. And it's been, shattering and death and rebirth over and over. And, gosh, the dance.
That sounds spiral. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Melissa, I don't know if you can hear, but so I can hear my baby crying in the background.
You want to go get her?
I do want to go get her.
We'll pause.
I'll be right back.
What a lovely thing, though, to be sitting with your baby and have that time when you get to look her in the eyes and feed her. It's funny because I really didn't like breastfeeding because it's too much touching because of my trauma, probably. And now I look back and I'm just like, I really did enjoy it. Even though I hated it, I kind of enjoyed it too. Like, it's the story.
You missed it. Yeah.
I miss them being little. I write poems about when they were little a lot. Now that they're teenagers and they're busy realizing I'm not infallible and being mad about it. So, but one thing I want to say,
there's a short period of time where your parents are like superheroes. And
then, what do they say? Sometimes you have to demonize your parents to humanize them. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's the terror of every mother to go through that with her own child.
I had a lot of, I didn't find out what Zarina was. I didn't do, like the ultrasound to find out the gender. And as it went on, it never felt like the pregnancy, like the way my son did, like where it felt like the energy was different than mine. It felt very much the same. So I had a strong sense that she was female or is female. And as it went on and got closer, I started to get this anxiety of what if she is a girl? And what if, because of the mother wound that I have, what if, because she's a girl, I have a hard time relating to it. Like it was all this like built up pressure around it. And then I just started, instead of kind of like what you said, instead of like turning away from it, I was like, okay, well, what would that mean? Why do I feel, you know what I mean? Like asking those questions. And it's really, I'm sure you use it for your poems and stuff, right? I do a lot of like shadow song work, like working these things out through the poems and through, what do I actually want to say to myself and say that in the song, instead of I used to write songs for years that were like, people would go, oh, your songs are so sad. And they just kind of like, melancholy. And I think that's really because I was like telling myself those things instead of like, I want to heal. Like, let's talk about healing. And so that really helped me a lot. And then I had the most amazing birth with her. It was like a dream birth. Like, I mean, I was laughing. Like, so for me, my mother wound revolves around like not being vulnerable, and the idea that, and even now, like I can feel like a tightness in my chest talking.
Do you want to do
about it.
some? Do you want to do some
that-
inquiry? Are you
Yeah,
sure?
I-
Well, you can edit it out later. You're uncomfortable.
Yeah, let's do it.
So
do you want me to keep
go ahead
going
and
down that
like
path?
flesh out the feeling. Yeah.
So the feeling is that if I show that I am sensitive, that I show the vulnerable side, that then people are like wolves and will like bite, go for the throat. So it's an obvious protection mechanism to go, I am, like you've heard of Atlas syndrome, like there's different terms for it, but like the Atlas syndrome where it talks about you as a child were put into situations where you needed to be more adult than you were actually developmentally ready for. And so then that manifests as an adult as you don't ask for help. And if you do, you end up being like, never mind, I'll do it myself. You feel like you can't count on people. You feel like you can't open up to people, but then you also don't choose to open up to people.
And
so it's like a very double-edged, it's like, you're like, I'll carry it all myself. And then you're afraid of being vulnerable, which is actually a beautiful strength, and so then I see it like with, like when people get like whiny and they're like crying in front of me, the empathetic mothering side is like, this is beautiful that they're sharing it with me, and I get to, give them a hug or talk, just be with them, not even ask them how I can solve it, but just be with them. But then the other side is like, oh, just come on, like life is hard, like let's just get over it. And I'm like, I don't want to be that way. I want to be vulnerable, and I want to be sweet, and I want to be with them in those moments, and not just be like, oh, get over it, like winter is coming. Like
so yeah,
you know what I mean?
So is there someone in your life that exemplified that, like, just get over it energy when you were young?
Yeah, my mom.
Okay. So all right, so can you give me 3 things, like, if into that feeling, I want you to feel into that feeling, and I want you to tell me 3 things about her that caused that feeling. Like, can you give me 3 adjectives?
So the first one that comes to mind is coldness. And then the second one is unavailable. I don't know if these are adjectives.
It's fine. It's good. It's perfect.
Like, they're just the words that are coming through. And I think the next one is probably impatient.
Okay. So what is so bad about being cold and unavailable and impatient?
I think what is so bad about, like, if she's that way or I'm that way or anybody
her, it's fine if you look at her. What's so bad when she's that way? What will happen to her, like, at the end of her life if she continues being that way?
Then you're alone. Like, you're cold, and you're freezing over. Like, you're surrounded just by ice that you don't get to feel the warmth. Nobody reaches out to you. People stop. Like, it's like the best parts of you are just sort of, you're like the crust of the bread.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of like harsh, but that's sort of how it feels. It's very, like, I guess going into the second one, unreachable, like an island, like the sort of Simon and Garfunkel, like, you're an island, you're a rock, and rock never cries. And then so people can't go to you for stuff because they're like, oh, they wouldn't understand. They're always so strong.
Do you feel like there are, so you were talking about being cold and unavailable, and what was the third one?
Impatient.
Do you do things consciously in your life to avoid being those things?
To avoid being cold, yes. I feel like I try and leading into the second one, I try and always be available to people when they're like I feel like a lot of times I'm the person that people will go to
For
for help.
nurturing and
Like, yeah, like people will just reach out to me and like, I'm having this trouble with this, or like even on this show. I mean, Gina can attest this. The first time we met each other, we like trauma dumped all over.
yeah,
Like it was just like, this is the first time I'm meeting this person. And we went and sat at like the deepest place possible. Like I do that with people all the time. And I almost seek that out. Like I look deeply into people's eyes and I'm like, are you okay? And like the people that know me and they're like, don't do that right now. Like I'm trying to hold it together today. But it's like, and that's how I fell in love with my husband. We were working together and I was like doing my thing and everybody's like, oh yeah, she's great. And nobody knew. And he just like looked me in the eyes and he was like, what, how can I help? Like, you're not okay. Like, I can tell that you're not
yeah,
okay. And I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling
not seen.
seen all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden. Yeah,
So it's important to
absolutely.
you to be a warm person to avoid being
Yeah.
cold, or
Yeah.
to be connected,
Yes.
the opposite of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or to
Yes.
be um, like intimately connected to people. I feel like that. Am I wrong when I say that?
No, you're
Yeah.
absolutely correct. That
So
is
you
very
work
important
really
to me.
hard to be the opposite of these things that were in your mother, but you can feel that energy in yourself coming forward sometimes. That's what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to follow that train of what's so bad again. Because the shadow is made up of those things that you feel are bad. That's the energy you're trying to hold back, but is coming forward anyway, maybe sideways, right? So the fear of being cold and disconnected and alone. What's so bad about being alone on an island?
I mean, the first thing to say is like in early motherhood, like right now, there are times like where you crave to be alone. Like you can't even use the
Yeah,
bathroom alone. So like, there's having time to have solitude and get, you know, time to yourself is huge. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with being alone per se, but the idea of being like permanently alone, like misunderstood, I think is probably what comes to mind is that if you're alone, like and there's no one there to understand you, there's
so
yeah,
maybe you're
that's
not
what comes to
seen.
mind.
And what's so
Yeah.
bad about not being seen?
Well, I mean, I guess it's sort of like the old philosophical, like if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to witness it, like did that tree
Is it
even
even real?
exist? Like, are
Mm,
you? Yeah. So it's like I feel like yeah, if you're not seen, are you really even there? Like, I mean, we're such social creatures, and I'm definitely a
yeah.
social creature. Like, I love my alone time, but I need to have connectivity with
Mm.
other people.
So you need other people. Are you, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not seen, because this is really about you, if you're not seen,
Yeah. Oh, I didn't.
if you're not seen,
Okay.
how do you feel? How does it feel in your body when you think about
Like
being alone?
angry.
Yeah. And when your chest, can you feel back into that tightness in your chest? Does that come from that fear of being unseen and alone?
Yeah, it feels like I'm
Yeah.
hyperventilating. Like that, when like kids are like really, or like even when babies, like, would they really get into like the crying fit and then they do the,
Yeah.
like the gasping.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Like it's like going
Yeah.
back into that feeling.
So in this
Yeah.
circumstance, I feel like if you'll go into that, close your eyes for a minute, if you wouldn't mind, and I want you to kind of take a deep breath and feel into that space in your chest. See if you can get like a picture of it in your head, like a symbol or an image coming in.
Yeah. It's like a cave. That's when, like, I already had it before you
In
even
a
said it.
cave. All right. And what is inside that cave? Does it feel scary to look inside?
Yeah. It's
Mm.
definitely dark.
So we're going to lean into the discomfort. I want to remind you that you're in a safe place. You're not in a cave. So I want you to feel the feeling and also be the observer at the same time. So go ahead and see if you can move it toward the cave to look in.
So there is light in there and it's a fire, and I was not invited in.
And what does the fire
Like, I
what does
don't
the
know
fire
what's that.
represent to you?
Community, a sense of belonging, like a root system, grounding. Like that feels like once I look in there, that feels like a safe spot to
Yeah.
be, and it doesn't feel like I belong.
What
there.
happens if you never are invited into that?
I guess I have to keep on walking down like the shore or whatever. This cave does feel like it's like oceanside, so and like
Yeah.
on like a rocky cliff type of thing. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a walk in the dark, and I don't know, maybe hopefully some moonlight or something
Yeah.
to guide me.
So what we're tapping into right now is a really deep primal survival instinct. It is this idea that if you do not have a tribe and a fire, what would happen?
You
You'd starve to
probably
death.
die. Like,
Yeah.
I-
So
Yeah.
what's so bad about starving to death? Because that's what your body is telling you. If you're unseen, you will starve to death. What happens if you starve to death?
you just waste away. Like it's a slow, very
Yeah.
like, I mean, not that any way to go is like the best way to go, but I think there are probably some ways that are better to go than others. And that
No,
doesn't
it's
seem
unpleasant,
like-
right?
it
But
seems-
what happens after your body decomposes? What happens to the real you?
I think that you return back into some sort of great ocean or river. To me, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm a Pisces, but it always feels like water, where it's like all knowing, all seeing, like loss of individuality. Like you're just back into like, I mean, you don't have
Right.
a form
I'm really
anymore.
curious about that. Does that feel good to you or does that feel bad to you?
In some ways, it feels like the ultimate
Mm-hmm.
release because it's that's it seems natural. But in other ways, it's seems very, I mean, to lose your individual self, to lose the memories of that body or the connections with that body, the loves that you had there. But at the same time, I mean, my philosophy is of it, I think that, I mean, you're back into the love of everything.
The oneness.
There. Like the chaos and like the darkness and the light. Like there is no real, like everything that I'm naming right now is just a human experience. So it can't even touch what that
So if we'll
existence
go
is.
back into the visualization, you were outside of the cave and you saw the ocean, right? So I'd like to invite you to walk very carefully and slowly as you're comfortable to feel the sand under your feet. Look up at the moon. Feel the coldness of the water as the waves hit you. And if it feels good to you, to allow yourself to just dip your toe or go as deeply as you like into that ocean.
It's so funny because before when you were like the ocean, I was like, I was already diving in. Like I didn't even have like the slow build up. I was like,
okay, mermaid, go be a
go.
Pisces. How does it feel? How does it feel to mermaid?
I think it feels freeing, but also overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the idea of a mermaid, right? That's always been super seductive and attractive to me because it's like you can breathe underwater, you can go to the deepest depths, and it can't harm you. Like you almost like you have this, like your breath is the armor, right? The fact that you're not bothered by water, you're not weighed down by it. Like the idea of the ocean is, I mean, I respect the ocean, but I'm very scared of the ocean. Like I remember one time I was staying at the beach and there was this huge storm raging, and I was like, at any time, this ocean could choose, like, right, like it has a mind. I mean, it does in its own way, right? But like could choose to just open up and swallow everyone up. Like it could just rage. And I was like,
It
that's
is
so frightening. But then I'm like, it's so
funny because
beautiful.
I'm also afraid of water, but my name, my chosen name, Melissa Naiad, a naiad is a mermaid. And I have experienced that same thing, that there is an aspect of ourselves that wants to remain separate, is afraid to lose our ego. And that part of us is the one that's afraid to die. But what would open up for you if you were not afraid of these things? If you were not afraid of being separate? What would open up for you if you weren't afraid of being cold? Or if you weren't afraid of maybe setting boundaries around other people's trauma? What if you didn't have to hold all that for everyone? What would open up for you?
I think access to joy, like at a level that it doesn't have to do with kind of like what you were talking about earlier, at a level that it's not bound with productivity. It's not bound with like how clean your house is or whether or not like it's okay to, roll around on the ground right now or roll around at like just that childlike presence that like they don't care that they're rolling in mud. Like they don't, they'll walk right up to your face and say, yeah, ketchup right there. These constraints that adulthood, I guess, going back to the water metaphor again, like being put into like a container, like being bound and feeling like you have to fit into that container, even though it doesn't fully represent you. And it's like in those feelings, those wounds of being, happening again, those wounds of being misunderstood. So, right? What container am I in?
That's the thing, else? Right? So it's right there. That's the thing. Do you always do those things because you want to? These being warm and being connecting and being available? Or do you sometimes do it because you're afraid?
Yeah. I mean, fear is definitely, I think for a lot of people and for myself included, like
it's the motivation of everything.
It's like, okay, people are coming over. I want to make sure my house is clean to them. I don't want them in a space that, feels cluttered. I don't want them to think that there's something wrong with me. Like I don't have it together.
Right.
My house is unclean.
Which are all very performative.
I don't want to say.
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's right there. So you're still not at that place where you can just toss off all convention. You have children to take care of, right? But you know that joy of being a child, the one that was stolen for you, is what is wanting to come forward. That is what your soul longs to feel. And what is standing between you and that feeling of freedom to create and freedom to be is this fear of being ostracized, which you know now in your adult self. I mean, are you really going to die of starvation if you're not invited to the fire?
I mean, in this day and age, what kind of starvation are we talking about?
No, we're talking about physical survival, social survival, right? We're talking about these base survival instincts, which your ego is still really holding on to because you're a mother and you have to provide for little children. And I get that. But as you get older, that's a tension you're going to deal with right there. And just being aware of that right there is going to create shifts in your life. You're going to be like, okay, why am I listening to this? And I'm not saying you and Gina didn't have a good time, but what if in that moment that was actually not something that you wanted to participate in? Now, I love Gina and I totally love hanging out with her. So I assume that was what you wanted to do. But if it was, if it was someone in that moment that you didn't, imagine the freedom of saying, hey, I don't really have capacity for this right now. I really just need to go roll in the grass.
It's so funny that you say that because somebody did reach out to me recently and I said, I hear you and I want, I wish you the best on this, but I really don't have the bandwidth for this right now. Like I was literally in that moment in my own crisis. And they were messaging me and I was like, no, I am sorry. I hear that this is a big deal for you because I guess that's the thing is I don't want them to feel misunderstood. Like I feel like I've felt that. And I do not wish that for anybody, even though I know that it's a reality.
Yeah. So it's a big complex idea, one that you would revisit over and over in shadow work. You know what I'm saying? Because it's rooted in these survival issues and childhood patterns and emotional patterns. And they're ones that are you're going to see them, but you're going to be like in the middle of them sometimes. So that was a really good start right there. Just claiming to do what you want. Sometimes you'll feel bad afterwards for a while, and you have to say, hey, it's okay for me to claim what I want. I think this idea about creating, like doing the thing that our soul desires to do is like, that's the point of being human. We're not in a struggle for survival right now. Right now, we are learning to be who we truly authentically are. And it feels like a survival issue. So that's what you're coming up against. That's the insight you're getting. You know, and so in what I would do, maybe not yet because you're in the middle of mothering, but if I don't know, if it came up and you just really wanted to, you know, we would do dream work around that. You may track your stuff in a dream journal, and this idea of a cave, that often is like a presenting vision where you're going internally, or you're seeing your shadow or a fear and emotion in this cave or this dark place or a dark room or something like that. But interacting with those energies and coming in as the observer saying, this is just a survival instinct. I don't have to choose this anymore. I don't have to choose to let somebody trauma dump on me. I don't have to choose to do what other people think is best because I don't have to earn my place at the fire. I'm inherently worthy.
That cuts like really deep. That's like, yeah, I don't have to earn, like I have my own fire. Like I can build.
And you're inherently lovable because you're love. So this idea that we are struggling for survival now that's what's creating all these patterns. It literally, it's a survival mechanism that is no longer useful. And in middle life, you can learn to navigate around it. And that's lovely. Now you have that insight and you can make choices now that kind of, now that you know, and there are probably layers and layers underneath that you're not even really accessing yet. But that's the first kind of insight you're getting into, this is a pattern. And it may bloom. You may see it in other areas of your life now. It's amazing how, I just got held up by my own consciousness here. So the important thing to remember is, we were talking about shame earlier, and shame or fear is often the emotion that comes up when you're starting to move in the direction of bypassing your survival instincts. It depends on if it's a social survival or it's a physical survival thing, but shame is usually the social survival one. And shame is it's the inner critic. It's the inner story you're telling yourself to conform. You're forcing yourself to conform with shame, right? You're like, be a good girl, do the right, right? But that's your shame. That's nobody else causing you shame. That's your inner critic, your inner like mean mom. The part of her you carry with you. It's not really her. It's like a shadow aspect in yourself. And you're carrying it with you and giving power to this. You can start to reclaim that energy. You know? It's really empowering. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you did this so where did you learn that technique?
So that's kind of an overlap of the shamanic soul retrieval techniques and the creative mind technique. So the creative mind, we move over into mindset later and more active visualization and stuff like that. But the meditation and feeling into your body, those are like classic shamanic or somatic skills, and they all overlap. They're just different ways of seeing the same thing. So I use whatever technique just feels really good in the moment. And, so I have like many tools to explore that same idea. This is just like a 15-minute inquiry, a self-inquiry, right?
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of ways to kind of work with it until you can consciously choose to do something else. Integrate the aspect of yourself that's afraid, bring it forward and integrate that. And that's a lot. I mean, I say it's a long process. You can do it quickly, but it usually is a process of finding the aspect of self that's creating the fear and bringing it forward and integrating it into yourself. So it's
that's beautiful. So so someone watching this that's like, wow, I want to do that. Is that which aspect? Like you're a goddess here, right? Which aspect of the Melissa Naiad goddess are you accessible
for shadow work coaching?
Like doing that kind of, yeah. Is that the Levinian Oracle? Is that your prismatic awakening?
I do. So I went by.
I mean, you've got these.
I do. So I only have
so to speak.
melissanaiad.com. That's my website where you can sign up to work with me. There's like a little interview thing, I actually ask a lot of my clients because this is hard work. And if you're not really willing to work, like you need to invest. I am. I
You're
don't want to
vetting
work
them
with
a little
people who
bit,
don't want to
right?
work
You're like,
hard. I
okay.
really don't. And also, if you're not ready
Yeah.
for the work, it's really destabilizing. So, like, if you want to create change, you need to be willing to work hard and be brave. You know, it's not, this isn't just traipsing through the daisies. This is going into your own shadow, and it's challenging. Um, so anyway, the
Yeah.
best place to find me is on Instagram, probably melissa.naiad.muse, and that's NAIAD. Um, and you can also reach me at melissa.naiad.muse@gmail.com. And yeah, so I just moved, so I kind of backed off doing bookings for a while, but I'm just starting to open them up again. Probably have capacity for only 2 clients right now. So it's very intimate work. It's deep work. It's not something
Yeah.
where I take a lot of clients and work really shallow. It takes a lot from me too. So
Yeah, I was going to say, so how do you, and I often ask this of individuals who do this type of work, whether it be, I mean, because I also know you do Reiki, but you know, people that do Reiki or massage or any sort of coaching, soul coaching stuff where it's like intimately involved with people and their problems, actually, not to sound cold. There's my fear coming out, but how do you unburden yourself of those? Because obviously you grow an attachment to these individuals and you care about them and you care about the outcome and you want them to succeed. So how do you keep yourself from
well,
being
for me,
drained during that process?
the intimate relationship is more like an energetic thing. So because I'm like feeling in, like I could feel the pain in your chest. You know, that's a normal healer thing to be able to feel their client's body when they're working with them. But so for me, I realized at some point, I'm not really in charge of someone else's healing. I don't even see myself as a healer. I see myself as a muse. I inspire people to go into their shadow so that they can create the life they want, because that's what I'm doing. And I hold space for them to do that. But really, the person, the being, the consciousness that leads that process is theirs. And the responsibility for doing that is theirs. And I have, you know, I'm the Sherpa. I have the tools, but they have the
Yeah.
responsibility. And so if someone chooses not to do the work, that's okay. That's where they want to be. That's their choice. And I'm not attached to the outcome. I am excited. I root for people when they create big breakthroughs. It's their breakthrough. They can own it. Mine was just to inspire and hold space.
Yeah.
I have the tools and I did the training, but really it's the person themselves that can, you know, say, I did this. I went into my shadow. I did the work. I did the individuation process. And it's their insights and their own consciousness, their images, everything comes from themselves. And so I don't have to own that. I don't have to take that on. That's them.
Melissa, thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm like, I definitely will have to talk again. I really appreciate you guiding me into that cave. I was going to say entering that cave, and I was like, no, like she said, she just guided me to see it. It's like, you know, what they say about great teachers, like they're never going to tell you what to see, but just sort of show you
Yeah.
where to look.
It's your cave and it's your epic journey.
Is there, I love that. And it's your epic journey. You need to make that into that. If that's not already a little meme slogan for you, I want you to type that up and make it into a shareable little picture on Instagram, because that's just, I mean, as much as it seems like so shallow when people are like, oh, you're connecting at this level on Instagram. And I'm like, but that's like the beauty of social media that then also has the dark downside to it, right? Is that like you're like one step away from being telepathic
totally.
with people. Like we're communicating instantaneously right now
Yeah.
from two different
It can be very
places
intimate. I think,
on the
you know,
planet.
it's only people who aren't vulnerable enough to be authentic who feel like it's only fake. Yeah. Which is fine. I'm not judging that. But yeah. No, it's lovely. And I think you and I have communicated a lot through like stuff I've made. Yeah. So
Yeah, it definitely resonates. We didn't, I mean, we've talked about, we have covered a lot of ground, right? Here's the productivity again. I'm like, I never got to
Oh,
the
for
witch wound, and I
Lavinian, we
really
can
want
do
to
that
talk
another
to you
time.
about that.
It's actually not even up right
Yeah,
now to be
okay, good.
offered. So yeah. So but we
Okay.
could do another one about that. I'm it was a really cool. Did you get to do the clearing by any chance? Well,
I
when
don't
we
know
put
how
it
to
up
do
again,
that. What
it'll be
was,
available again soon. And it's exciting. Just as a preview.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was, yes, I had just had Zarina, and I think I was like, I
Yeah.
can't
Which
get
is
to a
fine. Like
spot where I,
we're in a
yes, I
rhythm.
remember you had it live streamed.
Um
Yes.
yeah, that's exciting. We can talk about that another time. I'm really excited to share that with people and other things too. It's a transmutation of the witch wound, which is we blame it on men, but really the witch wound is women injuring other women, and it's why we have a hard time finding community. And
Yeah,
community is precious, like you said. It's huge, and we all
it's huge. And
we
that's why,
desire it so deeply. Like
go
this
ahead.
idea of
And
having
I'll
a
tell you what I was
sisterhood that
going to say.
supports us instead of one we have to compete with is it's this wool is
Yeah.
such a deep desire, like all the way down into our core. And I think it's related to healing that mother wound because it's remembering that we're one and that we are consciousness looking at each other out of each other's eyes. There is no competition between us.
Yeah, because it's just all, I mean, we're all on our own beautiful, epic journey, like you said. Yeah, that's absolutely so cathartic and so healing. And I think that's why when you do have those great, like, I mean, people are like, it sounds kitschy, right? Where you're like, oh, the girls' night out, but those are so important. Like but when you
Yeah,
actually connect, like not just going out and being like, oh, we're doing our
go
nails. I
deep.
mean, if you
We go
connect doing your
deep.
nails, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
not what I'm saying. But yeah, right. Not just surface level, like where you're actually like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And then you share it with each other and then you guys all laugh and then you cry. I mean, those are
yeah,
so healing, like deeply, like
yeah,
making you tingle
yeah.
type
It's
of
a
healing.
very
That's
deep
so
desire.
important.
Hmm.
Oh,
For me too. I've
yeah.
always, and it's hard for me because I was created to be a shadow worker, and so I trigger people because triggers are how we get there. It's an accident, but it happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I desire very deeply to be with a group of women who, when they're triggered, can own that and say, "Oh, this is a me thing and not a you thing," you know. And those are the women that I desire deeply. Women who can go deep, and women who own their sovereignty and own their power to feel what they're choosing to feel and use it, because that's magic. Fuck, excuse me, but it is. That's when you start really goddess level shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm creating my reality. Let's do this shit on purpose.
Goddess
So
love.
yeah.
Right. That's when you got your
Or
coven
like I said,
going.
my counsel, because that's what I want. I don't want to bend reality. I want to be in harmony with all things. I want to feel that oneness in my reality. And even though it's a process of individuation, finding your unique expression of consciousness, that means that when we're all in our individuated, authentic self, we can look at each other like pieces of art. And because it's an expression of pure consciousness coming through in its most authentic form. How beautiful is that? How wonderful it is to say, yeah, I'm the shit, but so are you, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And not be afraid of saying that.
because you're the shit. Yeah,
Absolutely. You're also the shit,
exactly.
my
We
goddess.
all do it.
It's like the inner goddess in me acknowledges the inner
Yes,
goddess in
thank you
you.
so much for this time.